In this lesson, we are going to learn about cluster tips and tricks, which will include the knowledge about the termination, deletion, or restart of the cluster, as well as will include some cluster permissions who can manage, restart, or attach a cluster. So let us start with the termination of the cluster. There are two types of termination within the cluster. First could be the automated termination. Second, the manual termination. In case of the automated termination, it could happen for the cluster that are attached to the jobs and the scheduled jobs. And the second could be when we specify that after X minutes of inactivity of the cluster, it should be automatically terminated. Let us go through the Databricks UI and see this in practical. So I am within the compute of the Databricks workspace. I have two clusters here. One is running at the moment and the second which is in the stopped state. So I can go into the one of the cluster and see the properties of the cluster. Within the properties, I have terminate after 15 minutes of inactivity, which is always configurable, which means if I am not using this cluster for 15 minutes at a stretch, this cluster will be terminated. In case I don't want to terminate this cluster automatically, I always have the option to edit this and change it to 0 or either deselect this option. The second was in case of the jobs. So when I go to the job compute option within compute, I can see the clusters, those spin up for a job. So because I have already ran a job 1, so this cluster was spun up. So when the job completed, whether that succeeds or fails, irrespective of the job outcome, the cluster will automatically terminate. So still I can go and see the properties of the job. So the benefit of retaining this configuration is that when I rerun this job again, Databricks can go and use the same configuration. Then next we come to the deletion of the cluster. So let us go to the all purpose compute, wherein I have the option to select the 3 ellipses and delete the cluster. In case I want that the cluster, there should not be an ability to delete the cluster. For example, this one, I can go and pin the cluster. So I can unpin the cluster based on whether I want to delete a cluster or not. So this is a pinned cluster. I don't have the option to delete. However, in this cluster, since this one is not pinned, I have the option to go and delete this. This is activity which cannot be rolled back. Once the cluster is deleted, it's deleted. The last is restarting the cluster. So when we restart the cluster, it gets the latest images from the compute resource containers and the VM host. The host could be the AWS or Google or Azure. So it will get the latest security patches, latest images for that compute resource containers. And if we enable compliance security profile for our account, clusters will be automatically restarted after 25 days. So because the security patches will be updated when we restart the clusters, so for the long running containers, long running compute where they are not automatically terminated, it is recommended that we restart the clusters at least once in 1 month. Next we come to the cluster permissions. So we have 3 types of permission: manage, restart and attach. So when I click on these ellipses, I have the edit permission. When I click on that, I can see that I as a user can manage the cluster, which means I can change the permission of these clusters. I can assign some other user or revoke the permission of other user to become the admin or manage this cluster or change the permissions of this cluster. Then I can assign the permission to restart the cluster. Then the third permission is to attach this cluster to a notebook or any other artifact. So this was all about the permissions of the cluster. Thank you.